Tsale. This opera serves dramatic romanticism on a silver platter. This year, 2024, marks 100 years since the death of the legendary Italian composer Giacomo Puccini. And this opera, the last one he wrote, was incomplete at the time of his death. Without this opera, we wouldn't have one of the most thrilling operatic arias in the tenor repertoire. Ladies and gentlemen, let's travel to China and experience the musical mastery of Puccini in the opera Turandot. Once upon a time in Peking, China, there lived a beautiful princess called Turandot. She is the definition of an ice queen, cold, heartless, perpetual resting bee face. She's in the imperial palace and she sends a mandarin to read a proclamation to the public. The proclamation basically states that any suitor who wants to marry Turandot has to answer 3 riddles. If he gets even one of those riddles wrong, he will die. Turandot is a very attractive, eligible bachelorette. One can imagine how many men would try their luck at winning the hand of the wealthy princess and marrying into the empire. But why is Turandot ordering the execution of failed suitors? Well, every villain has an origin story. We'll get to that in just a bit. Back to the proclamation from the palace. The latest brave man to attempt the riddle challenge is the Prince of Persia, and he failed woefully. Therefore, he is to be executed when the moon rises. A crowd is gathering outside the palace in anticipation of the execution. In the crowd, there is an old man named Timur, accompanied by a young girl called Liu. There is also a handsome man named Kalaf. Kalaf is keenly observing Timur, and he realizes that Timur is his long-lost father, the king of Tartary, but he was dethroned by Chinese conquerors, and he's been living undercover. Obviously, he wasn't dressed in his kingly regalia, so it took a while for Kalaf to realize that he was looking at his dear darling dad. It's an emotional reunion between King Timur and Prince Kalaf, but they have to be careful. They can't refer to each other by their real names for fear of being found out. Timur and Kalaf are catching up about how they've been living since they last saw each other, and Timur tells Kalaf that his servant girl Liu is the only person who remained loyal to him. So Kalaf was curious and he asked Liu, he said, "But Liu, how come you're still loyal to my dad? I mean, I could understand if he was still the king, maybe you'd be enjoying some palatial favors or something. But he's kind of decrepit now, and you're obviously hustling, so why are you still with him?" Then Liu explained to Kalaf that the reason she's still with Timur is because a long time ago, when she worked at the palace, Kalaf smiled at her, and her heart melted forever. Aww. So she couldn't bring herself to leave his father. The power of a smile, baby. Anyway, while this sweet family reunion is happening, the time for the execution arrives. By now, the crowd is pleading with Turandot to have mercy on the Prince of Persia. But Princess Turandot is colder than a witch's bosom, and with one flick of her delicate wrist, the Prince of Persia is executed. Now, Kalaf has been watching Turandot during this whole exercise, and he is mesmerized by her beauty. He decides that he has fallen in love with her, and he's going to attempt the riddle challenge. You see, when we say nice girls don't get the good guys, you've got faithful, loyal Liu and a black-hearted witch, and you choose the one who will kill you without blinking. Anyway, for those who want to attempt the riddle challenge, there's a gong in the palace square that they have to strike 3 times to announce their intention. Kalaf is so infatuated by Turandot that he starts heading towards the challenge gong without even considering the circumstances and the consequences. He is stopped by 3 ministers of the kingdom, Ping, Pang, and Pong, and they are all doing their best to discourage Kalaf. They're like, "Dude, you're a really handsome young man. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Don't do this. Don't lose your head." Literally. Liu, the poor servant girl who's so in love with Kalaf, pleads with him to give up this challenge. But it's virtually impossible to reason with someone who's fallen in love. So Kalaf ignores Ping, Pang, Pong, Timur, and Liu, and he goes ahead to strike the gong and declare himself the next suitor. Meanwhile, Turandot is observing him from her princess balcony like, "You are a fool of epic proportions. Congratulations on sealing your execution." So the night passes and morning comes. Kalaf is now in the presence of Emperor Altum, Turandot's father. Emperor is tired of his daughter's shenanigans. Personally, I don't know why he doesn't stop her. I mean, you're the emperor. What kind of emperor doesn't stop his daughter from killing people over riddles? Anyway, he urges Caliph to withdraw from the challenge. But stubborn man in love, Caliph refuses. He says, "Come what may, I shall proceed." At this point, Madame Turandot enters and she explains why she has decided that her unsuccessful suitors should meet such a cruel end. It turns out that one of her ancestral princesses, Lo U Ling, was a gentle, quiet ruler in her ancient queendom, and she was tragically raped and murdered by a prince. Because of that incident, Turandot has vowed that she will never belong to any man, and the riddle challenge is her way of making it virtually impossible for any suitor to have her. So she gives Caliph one last chance to back out of the challenge. Caliph's response: back out? Never. I'm ready for the first riddle. Are you ready to hear the riddles? Here we go. Riddle number 1. What is born each night and dies each dawn? Caliph replies, hope. His answer is correct, but Princess is unimpressed. She gives the second riddle. What flickers warm and red like a flame, but is not fire? Caliph pauses for dramatic effect, then responds, blood. Now we see Turandot sweating a bit because Caliph has answered 2 out of 3 correctly. No one has ever achieved that. She takes a deep breath and gives the third and final riddle. What is like ice but burns, and if it accepts you as a slave, makes you a king? Caliph doesn't miss a beat. He exclaims triumphantly, Turandot! Now, is it me, or are the riddles not riddling? Anyway, who cares? Caliph has won the challenge. The crowd goes wild. Turandot is stunned, and she realizes at this moment that she has to marry Caliph. She begs her father to intervene, but her father, who is secretly happy, is like, my dear daughter, a promise is a promise. You must marry Prince Caliph. Now, what would you do if you have achieved a feat that nobody has achieved before you? Wouldn't you just go happily on your way and marry the princess and be done with it? But not Caliph. Caliph has to make his job even harder. Caliph now decides to offer Turandot a way out. He knows that she doesn't know his name, so he challenges her to find out his name. He vows that if she discovers his name before the next dawn, he will surrender himself for execution. Of course, Turandot accepts this challenge. She's determined to be a single celibate princess forever. So anything that will get her out of this impending marriage, she will do. Meanwhile, her father, the emperor, is actually rooting for Caliph. He's like, look, you're my future son-in-law. Don't mess this up for me. The question is, how is Turandot going to find out Caliph's name? Well, we know she's very good at terrorizing her subjects. So she basically declares that nobody should sleep and everyone will die if they don't bring her his name by sunrise. This is where Caliph takes the no one should sleep part of her declaration and turns it into his own declaration. And yes, this is how we got that amazing, wonderful, beautiful aria popularized by the legendary tenor Luciano Pavarotti. Nessun dorma. It's so glorious. Thank you, Puccini. Thank you. Now, remember Ping, Pang, and Pong? They're still trying to convince Caliph to forget about Turandot and leave town. Caliph says, no way. Then some of Turandot's guards got a tip that it seems as though Timur and Liu know Caliph. So they drag them to the palace for questioning. Liu is still the faithful servant. She tells the guards that she is the only person who knows Caliph's name and she won't reveal it, no matter how much they torture her. Eventually, Turandot steps in and asks Liu why she's so bent on keeping Caliph's name a secret, even to the extent of enduring torture. Liu tells her that one day, even she, Turandot, the Ice Princess, would experience the joy of love, and then she will understand. Liu then grabs one of the guards' daggers and unalives herself. The stunned crowd mourns with the old, frail King Timur, who has lost his loyal servant, and they form a procession behind Liu's body as she's carried away. So Caliph and Turandot are left alone at the palace. Initially, Caliph kind of gives it to her. Like, but Turandot, why are you so mean? Why are you so evil? Why are you so cruel and heartless? But at the same time, he can't resist her, so he kisses her. Turandot tries her best to resist him, but eventually she succumbs to his embrace. And all of a sudden, she finds herself realizing that she loves him. I know, it's so unrealistic. Anyway, Caliph reveals his name to her. leaving her with the decision of whether or not to kill him. Oh, this guy. But surprisingly, Turandot leads him to her father and tells her father that she has found out Calaf's name, and his name is Love. And the news of their love spread throughout the empire, and everyone rejoiced with them. I know, the ending seems rather abrupt and somewhat incongruent with the prior events in the opera, probably due to the fact that, as I mentioned in the beginning, this opera wasn't complete at the time of Puccini's death. Puccini died before he could finish Turandot. So Puccini stopped where Liu dies in the opera. Another composer, Franco Alfano, was selected to complete the work, but there have been other composers who have also written alternative endings to this opera. One can only wonder what the ending would have been had Puccini lived to complete it. Nonetheless, this is an opera that has stood the test of time, defined careers, and held audiences spellbound all over the world. Cheers.